Dashing thought about that. Little Dinky Doo, huh? That's just about as cute as of a name that you can have. She's just about the cutest filly there can be, Ditsy argued. Good point, laughed Dashing. Dinky Doo it is. Both ponies smiled proudly at the thought. Date of year of Luna's banishment, 996. Location, the Dew Cottage. Little Dinky had made delighted burbling noises as Ditsy waved around a spoonful of mashed carrots, before she gently placed a mouthful of food into the filly's mouth. Dinky giggled, spilling half of the carrots back out. You're a messy little filly sometimes, aren't you, Dinky? Ditsy chuckled as she wiped the spilled baby food. Yes, Dinky cried excitedly, elated to use one of the few words she knew. Ditsy smiled and glanced over to her husband, who was approaching quickly to help clean up. I think it's about time we all go to bed, he mentioned. Dinky's got a check-up in the morning, Mom. Remember? Ditsy nodded. Yeah, and I could use a break too. This little filly can be a hoofsful sometimes. Dinky giggled, as if trying to agree with her mother. Ditsy lifted the filly onto her back and carried her up to her room. Dashing blew out the lantern before trotting up to the steps as well. Sounds could be heard above as the happy couple helped their merry little filly get tucked into bed. A thin tendril of smoke issued from the extinguished lantern, a single spark emitted from a dying ember within its confines, bringing a tiny flame back to life inside. Ditsy awoke suddenly. She was only about half conscious. Something was wrong. Her vision was blurry, and an unpleasant smell filled her nose. Struggling to make sense of her surroundings, the mare rolled over and sat up in bed, and the smell intensified, causing her to cough. It was strange. Her eyes couldn't seem to adjust to the darkness. It was as if the air was harder to see than usual. Then, near the doorway, Ditsy spied the flickering red light and realized at once what was wrong. Dashing! She cried, shaking her soundly sleeping partner. Wake up, now! Dashing groaned. Huh? What? Get up! Get up! There's a fire! That got Dashing up real quick, and in an instant both ponies were on their hoofs. Smoke was rapidly filling the room, and they both had to duck to stay below the thickest of it. In a moment, they arrived on the second-floor landing and were temporarily stunned by the spectacle. Angry red and orange flames licked the floor, blazing up from below. The cottage, constructed mostly of wood and straw, allowed the deadly fire to spread at an enormous rate. Most of the furniture downstairs were flaming, and the lines of fire snaked across the floor. It appeared to be the most intense around the table, at the center of which now sat the now half-melted lantern. That's a mouthful. Flames had climbed the walls and supports and reached the edge of the upper landing, which were already beginning to make dangerous cracking noises as the heat and flames attacked it. Get outside, Dashing said immediately. I'll get Dinky. No, let me, Ditsy asked. Ditsy started. No, the stallion yelled. I can carry her with my magic. It's quicker. Now please, go. Hurry. Obediently, Ditsy turned and scampered down the stairs, but the fire continued to spread at an amazing rate. Sorry, I had a burp. That's not good. That's unprofessional. Several more floorboards suddenly burst into flames, and Ditsy instinctively leapt up, floating above the fire with her wings. Quickly she navigated toward the door, fighting through the smoke. Finally, she landed at a spot that was still not burned. She glanced back into the landing, where the silhouettes of her husband was barely visible. I've got Dinky! Get outside now! A squeal confirmed that Dinky was with the stallion, and the mare reluctantly turned to go. The doorpost had already caught fire. To avoid getting burned, Ditsy turned and bucked the door open, allowing a burst of cool night air into the room. She turned around and attempted to leap through the door. At the moment, the flames proved too much for the door lintel to take. The door cracked through on one side, causing the wooden beam above the door to swing downwards, and a heavy block of wood struck the mare in the face with brutal force. Gah! Ditsy cried, reeling from the impact. She slammed her eyes shut in pain as she staggered outside, managing to get a few yards from the burning building before collapsing. Her skull pounded from the injury, and the lack of oxygen due to the smoke wasn't helping all much either. But despite it all, the mare managed to pry one eye open for a few moments, just long enough to catch a final glimpse of movement. An outline appeared in the doorway of what she could only hope was her husband, yet as much as she tried, the throbbing in her head soon became too intense, and finally she gave up, She gave up. She gave up, slipping from the conscious world in the shadows of her doomed home. Year of Luna's banishment, 996. Location, Ponyville Urgent Care Recovery Unit. Is she awake yet? I don't think so. She hasn't moved, but all the bandages hide her eyes. How severe is the nerve damage? There is no nerve damage as far as we know. What? But an injury like that, surely there must have been some damage to brain tissue. But believe me, I'm as shocked as you are. This is one lucky mare, coming out of there with only small injuries. Ditsy groaned and shifted slightly. She had no idea who the voices belonged to or where they were coming from, but she wished they would go away, so she could sleep. The thought briefly crossed her mind of where she was, but she was too weak to care very much. She plumbed the depths of her foggy mind for the detail of the last memory. I fed Dinky her dinner and then I put her to bed. Then, oh yeah, there was a fire. The fire! Ditsy sat bolt upright into the bed, scaring the living daylights out of Nurse Redheart and the intern that had been reviewing the mare's chart. Where's the fire? What's going on? Why is it so dark now? Miss, please calm down, Redheart urged. You're safe. The fire's gone. You're at Ponyville Urgent Care. Please, you must relax. Ditsy settled a bit. That still doesn't answer my last question, though, she mumbled. Nurse Redheart chuckled. Don't worry, dear. You've just got bandages wrapped around the top of your head. We had to treat the whack you took trying to get out of the house. The memory of the last few seconds came flooding back to Ditsy, and with them came another thought. Wait, where's Dashing and Dinky? Are they okay? Dinky is fine, the nurse said. She suffered no injury or burns. She's already being treated for minor smoke inhalation and is now resting down the hall. Ditsy sighed in relief. And Dashing is with her, right? Silence. Nurse Redheart. I'm asking if Dashing is with her. The nurse cleared her throat. I'm afraid that Dashing didn't fare quite as well as your daughter. Ditsy's stomach tightened. He's hurt? What happened? Mr. Dashing appears to have used himself to shield Dinky from harm, the nurse said. Since he was carrying her with magic, he was unable to form a shield for himself. He was sent to emergency treatment as soon as the paramedics got to U3, but the burns were just too severe. Nurse Redheart finally began to lose her nearly unbreakable composure. Her voice cracked slightly as she continued to speak. His condition is poor, but perhaps you'd like to see him for yourself. Ditsy sat stone still, and the nurse waited tensely for her to respond. I want to see him now. Can we take the bandages off? I think so, said Nurse Redheart. But let me warn you, while your nervous tissues escaped unharmed, there was some moderate muscle damage. Gently she unwrapped the gauze encircling Ditsy's head, exposing her at last to the light. The Pegasus blinked a few times, waiting for her view to come into focus. They never did. Oh dear, said the nurse once they got a good look. I was afraid this might happen. What? Ditsy asked, trying various positions as if she attempted to get two images she viewed to blend into one. Sighing, the nurse held up a mirror. Ditsy's reflection left her stunned. Aside from the bruising on her forehead, everything appeared normal, except for the positioning of her pupils. One looked down into the mirror, as was normal. The other drifted lazily to the near of the top of her head. Ditsy struggled to bring both of them back into normal position. It worked. Two separate images melted into one. Unfortunately, the instant she relaxed her face, both eyes flew into separate positions again. It's not likely that the condition will correct itself, Nurse Redheart admitted. I'll worry about it later, said Ditsy resolutely, climbing out of bed. First take me to Dashing. The nurse nodded and trotted from the room. Ditsy made to follow, but smacked face first into the doorframe on the way out. Ow! Ditsy moaned. This is going to take some getting used to. More carefully, the Pegasus followed the nurse to the end of the hall. Just as they arrived, the male doctor exited the room looking glum. Something wrong, doctor? The nurse asked. The patient has passed away. Both Ditsy and Nurse Redheart gasped. Ditsy barreled forward, knocking the doctor out of the way and running into the bed within the dim chamber. She clutched the hoof of the stallion lying there, who did not respond. Ditsy collapsed, sobbing into the chest of her now deceased husband, as Nurse Redheart watched sympathetically from the doorway. You gave yourself up to save Dinky. I don't know why it had to happen this way. I don't know that I should. I'm not sure what I should do next. But I do know one thing. I won't let your life be in vain. I promise to keep Dinky safe.